All right, now I'll show you how to customize Photoshop's menu system, by which I mean that you can turn on and off individual commands in any given application menu, which is one of these menus that drops down from the top of the screen, or from a panel menu, which you can get by clicking on a fly-up menu icon in the top right corner of one of these right side panels. You can also assign colors to commands if you like. And indicative of nothing, I have open a composition that's based on a photograph from the Dreamstime image library, about which you can learn more and get some great deals at dreamstime.com/deek. You used to have to enter .php, but no more. Now you can just enter /deek. Isn't that awesome? Anyway, one of my particular problems with the menus inside Photoshop, where this little tiny screen is concerned, is that a couple of the menus are too tall. So notice the edit menu here begins with undo, and then I can see all the way down to convert to profile, but I'm still missing 4 commands down here at the bottom, keyboard shortcuts through preferences. And in order to scroll up and down here on the PC, I have to click on one of these arrow icons down here at the bottom or way up here at the top. I cannot currently scroll using the scroll wheel on my mouse. However, that does work on the Mac. Another menu that's too long for this screen is the layer menu. Notice it stops short at merge layers down here, and there are still 3 more commands, including matting, which I don't ever use, so I'll go ahead and get rid of that guy as well. And I'm also going to get rid of these 3 auto commands in the image menu. And then if I click the flyout menu icon in the top right corner of the layers panel, you can see that this is another very long menu that has some duplication. Some of the commands that are found inside of the layer menu, the actual layer application menu, are found inside this panel menu as well. All right, so if you decide you want to clean things up a little bit, then what you do is you go up to the edit menu and you go ahead and drop all the way down to the bottom and choose the menus command. Or you can just choose keyboard shortcuts, or you can press id shortcut, which is Control-Shift-Alt-K or Command-Shift-Option-K on the Mac. And that's because both of those commands bring up the same dialog box, which is called keyboard shortcuts and menus. And then you can switch back and forth between them by clicking on these tabs right here. All right, so I'm going to click on the menus tab, and then I'm going to go ahead and twirl open edit. Now, there were 4 commands that I could not see, you may recall, which means I need to turn off a total of 5 commands. And that's because, as indicated down here, we are going to see another command called show all menu items down at the bottom of the menu. So we need to make room for it as well. All right, so the first command that I'm going to turn off is this guy right here, clear. Because after all, you can do the same thing just by pressing the backspace key here on the PC or the delete key on the Mac. I'm not all that fond of the search command, so I'm going to turn it off. And by the way, you can always bring these commands back later, as I'll show you in just a minute. All right, now I'm going to scroll down to this guy right here, Content Aware Scale, which I don't use on a very regular basis. I'm going to leave, however, Content Aware Fill turned on because it's quite useful. All right, now scroll down to this guy, Transform, and I'm going to turn off that entire submenu because after all, every single one of these commands in the Transform menu is a duplicate of an operation that you can pull off using Free Transform. All right, I'm going to scroll down to these guys right here, Purge, and I'm going to turn this entire submenu off. Now, I use the Purge commands every once in a while to free up memory. However, as I'm going to show you, you can always bring these commands back anytime you like. All right, now I'll turn off Adobe PDF preferences. And then, just to see what I've done, I'll go ahead and click OK. And now, if I bring up the edit menu, you can see that it is now short enough to fit on this small screen. Now, if I decide I want to bring back some of those missing commands, such as those purge commands right around this area here, then all you have to do is choose this command at the bottom, show all menu items, and everything will once again reappear, including that purge submenu. And what I love about this is if I dismiss the menu and then bring it back, it is once again shortened. Another way to bring back all the menu commands is to press the Control key or the Command key on the Mac and click on the word Edit, for example, and that will bring back the full menu. So once again, that's a Control click here on the PC or a Command click on the Mac. All right, let's go ahead and take care of some of those other menu items by returning to the Edit menu and choosing either menus or keyboard shortcuts, or you can take advantage of that shortcut. That's what I'm going to do, in fact, is press Control-Shift-Alt-K or Command-Shift-Option-K on the Mac in order to bring up the keyboard shortcuts and menus dialog box, and then I'll switch to the menus tab. Very important that you switch to menus and that you're not working with keyboard shortcuts, and you'll know that you're working with your menus because you'll see these eyeballs right here. And I want you to see here, ironically, one of the commands that you cannot turn off here inside Photoshop is menus. The menus customization command you cannot turn off. I would if I could, because after all, it's duplicated by the keyboard shortcuts command. But for some reason, that is not an option. Anyway, I'll go ahead and twirl closed edit, and I'll twirl open image. And I'll scroll down the list until I come to those auto commands right here, and I'll just go ahead and turn each one of them off. And then I'll scroll back up the list, and I will collapse that image menu just by clicking on this little twirly triangle right there. And I'll twirl open layer in order to see this menu. And now we're going to do quite a number on this menu because I want you to see how you can colorize the menus if you like by clicking on the word none associated with the new submenu right there. Click on the word none, and then I'll go ahead and choose yellow in order to give it a color of yellow. Then I'll scroll down the list until I find these guys, copy CSS and so forth. I'm going to turn these guys off, not because they're not useful. In fact, they are very useful. However, they're all duplicated inside the layers panel menu. And so I figure there's no sense in having them in both places. So I'll go ahead and turn those guys off. And then I'll scroll down to layer style. And a lot of these layer effects right here are duplicated by this FX icon. And so I'm going to turn all of these off, starting with blend options. And you have to tediously click on each one of these eyeballs like so. But I'm going to turn off all the layer effects all the way down to drop shadow right there. I'll leave these other guys starting with copy layer style. I'll leave them turned on because they serve unique functions. And then I'll scroll back up to layer style, which is the name of the submenu, and I'll set its color to green, which will show me that some of the commands in this submenu are currently turned off. Okay, now I'll scroll down until I see new fill layer, and I'll set it to yellow. And then, just for the sake of variety, I'll click here next to new adjustment layer, and I'll change it to blue. And that way we'll just have a little bit of color variation. And let me show you why I think this is so useful. I'll click OK, and I'll bring up the layer menu, and notice that this is just a super long menu with a ton of submenus available to it. And so I find that a little bit of colorization helps dramatically, just helps me navigate my way through this menu. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hide that menu by pressing the Escape key a couple of times, and then I'll press Control-Shift-Alt-K, or Command-Shift-Option-K on a Mac to bring up my keyboard shortcuts. Then I'll switch to the Menus tab, and I'll scroll down this list quite a bit, actually, until I come to Layer Mask right here, and I'll change it to yellow. And then I'll scroll down to Vector Mask, which is its compatriot, so it's a kind of complementary command, and I'll set it to blue. And then I'll scroll down to this command, Create Release Clipping Mask, and I'll turn it off. And that's because, once again, it's duplicated in the Layers panel flyout menu, and you can just Alt-click or Option-click on the horizontal line between a couple of layers in order to either create or release a clipping mask. Now, here inside the Smart Object submenu, I'll turn off Convert to Smart Object, and I'll also turn off Edit Contents. After all, you can just double-click on a Smart Object's thumbnail in order to edit its contents. And then I'll change the color of the submenu to green, which will tell me, once again, that some of the commands are turned off. All right, now I'm going to scroll down until I find this guy, Video Layers, and I'll change its color to blue, let's say. And then I'll scroll farther down to Rasterize, change its color to yellow. I'll scroll even farther down until I come to Arrange, and I'll change it to yellow as well. And that's because it's divided from the Rasterize submenu by a few commands. Then I'll scroll down to Combine Shapes right here, and I'll change it to blue. And I'll scroll down to Align Layers and change it to yellow. And then we've got this guy, Distribute, which I'm going to miss. Actually, I didn't click on the right thing, so now I'll click on the guy next to Distribute and change it to blue. So you can change the color of individual commands inside submenus if you want, but I'm just going to go ahead and change the color of the submenus themselves. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and accept my changes by clicking OK. And I want you to now see, if I bring up the image menu, that we are missing those auto commands. If I want to bring them back, then I would just choose Show All Menu Items, like so, and there they are. And then if I switch over to the Layers panel, not only is it much shorter, but it has colors assigned to it as well, including purple, which I didn't mean to assign at all. I meant to assign yellow, so I'll have to fix that in just a moment. However, I want to show you this. If you decide you don't want to see those colors for any reason whatsoever, then just go ahead and bring up the Preferences dialog box by pressing Control-K or Command-K on a Mac, like so. And then you can switch to Interface. And by the way, you can get to each one of these items with a shortcut if you like. If you haven't had enough shortcuts yet, it's Control-1 for General, then Control-2 for Interface, Control-3 for Workspace, and so forth. That's going to be Command-4, for example, for Tools, Command-5 for History Log, and so on if you're working on the Mac. You can also press Control-down arrow in order to advance down the list. That would be Command-down arrow on the Mac, or you can press Command-up arrow or Control-up arrow on a PC in order to go up the list. And if you go too far, so for example, if I select the last item and press Control-down arrow or Command-down arrow on the Mac, then you will wrap around. You'll cycle around those guys. Anyway, I'm looking for interface, and notice this guy right here, Show Menu Colors. You can turn that checkbox off, at which point your menu colors will disappear, including that purple that I accidentally assigned earlier. Now let's say that you want to reduce the size of a panels menu, such as the one associated with the Layers panel. Then just go ahead and press Control-Shift-Alt-K or Command-Shift-Option-K once again in order to bring up the keyboard shortcuts. Click on the Menus tab, and I'm going to scroll down this guy and find where that purple one is because I really want to take care of that. I guess I don't really have to, but gosh, where is it? I don't really actually see it. That's blue. That's yellow. There's violet right there. That's my problem. I wanted it to be yellow, I guess, so I guess I completely missed that. Anyway, I'm now going to switch menu 4 here from application menus to panel menus, like so. And then I'll scroll down a list until I see this guy, Layers, and I'll go ahead and twirl it open. And notice Edit Adjustment right here. That allows you to edit an adjustment layer, which you can do just by double-clicking on its thumbnail. So I'll go ahead and turn that guy off. And then I'll scroll all the way to the bottom of the list and turn off Close and Close Tab Group because I never, ever want to close the Layers panel. And then I'll go ahead and scroll back up the list here, and I'll tidy things up by twirling Layers closed. And there's one thing that I forgot. I'm going to switch back to the Applications menu. Notice my layer menu is still twirled open, and I'm going to turn off these guys. Merge Layers, Merge Visible, Flatten Image, and Matting. And that's because even though these first 3 commands right here are terribly useful, they are once again duplicated in the Layers panel flyout menu. All right, now I don't want to leave this guy just sitting open like this, so I'll go ahead and twirl it closed. And finally, let's say you want to save your changes. Notice that Set is currently set to Photoshop Defaults Modified. Go ahead and click on the little hard drive icon with an ellipsis, that is a ... in order to bring up this dialog box. And I'll go ahead and call my settings mostly Layers menus because I did most of my work in those 2 Layers menus. And then I'll click Save, and I'll go ahead and replace this existing one. And now notice that I can switch back and forth anytime I like. So if I choose Photoshop Defaults, I'll bring back all the commands and I'll get rid of the colors as well. Or I could stick with mostly Layers menus, then click OK. And you can see, for example, that my Layer application menu is much shorter, as is the flyout menu associated with the Layers panel. And it ends, notice that, with Show All Menu Items. And so I could choose that command in order to bring back all the missing commands. Or if I dismiss that menu, I can just Control or Command click on that flyout menu icon to bring back all of the commands as well. And that's how you customize Photoshop's menus by turning on and off commands, as well as assigning colorful highlights.